Hi, my name is Anaïse. I come from a small country in Central Africa called Rwanda. It is known as the land of 1,000 hills, the heart of Africa, where the waters source the Nile. Our greenery is in abundance. It is as beautiful as here in Guatemala. Unfortunately, many people know my country for the horrific event that happened in 1994, the Rwandan genocide, that took the lives of more than 800,000 people in 100 days and left over 1.5 million people displaced internally and outside of the country. But what caused the genocide? It was the accumulation of decade-long of hate between two major groups in our country, the Hutu and the Tutsi. But these major groups were arbitrary, and they were defined by the Belgians who colonized us. When the Belgians arrived in our country, they decided that if a person is tall, slender, with a pointy nose, they're all Tutsi. If they are shorter, maybe with a flatter nose, they're a Hutu. In doing so, they divided our communities, families, really our country, because our country is one. We speak one language, we have the same tradition, people intermarried, and people live together. And during that time, the Belgians were in our country, they gave favor to the Tutsi. And that's in that way, they also oppressed the Hutu, not giving them education and not giving them access compared to the Tutsis. And when we gained independence in 1961, the Hutu took power. They were very angry about the past. And sadly, we did not have freedom right away. We went through a phase of autocracy over the next 30 years, where the Hutu leaders would use hate and propaganda against the Tutsi to keep hold of their power, just like what we're seeing around the world today, hate around the world. And in 1994, on April 6th, the plane of the president was shot by a rebel group, by the leader of a rebel group called Paul Kagame. And this declines the genocide that many of us have heard before, many times. These horrific events were also portrayed and described and told in many documentaries and films. And I think some of you may have heard of the movie Hotel Rwanda. Hotel Rwanda is the story of a man called Paul Rusesabagina, who was the manager of a luxury hotel during those days. And when the war erupted, all the diplomats and the international visitors of our country were evacuated, and the hotel was left empty. So Paul decided to use the hotel as a place for refuge and to bring people who were being persecuted and killed by the rebel Hutus at the time, committing the genocide, and to bring them in his hotel and to save them. When the rebels would come to his hotel, he would stop at the door, negotiate with them, convince them and persuade them to turn their back and go where they came from. And like that, he demonstrated that words can kill, but words can also save people. Paul Rusesabagina is also a very important person to me. He's my adopted father. The war took my parents, my mom and my dad, and my sister and I were left alone as orphans. But thankfully, by the end of the genocide, Paul and Tatiana found us and adopted us. They gave us the love that any children would ever dream of. When the movie was out, it had a lot of success, and it gave my father platform to speak about what's happening in our country. He gave him the platform to educate the world about the genocide that happened in Rwanda, so it doesn't happen in their countries as well. Because the rise of human rights abuse, the rise of autocracy, the rise of hate can lead to this kind of atrocious event. Since the genocide as well, our country has only known one leader. His name is Paul Kagame, the man I told you was the leader of the group that shot the plane of the president that declared the genocide. This man has been there for now 31 years. To stay in power, he had disseminated all media independent media. He has put all opposition in prison or exiled them or killed them. There's no one who can speak in the country. He had changed the constitution 3 times. And just recently, in August, he won by 99.15% in a democratic country. Our country has also received more than $20 billion in aid, and yet it remains the 26th poorest country in the world. Where has the money gone? Through looting because of the regime. Today, many people know Rwanda. Today, many people know Rwanda as a place of economic opportunities. Kagame is known as a visionary leader. He's welcomed in all platforms around the world, in big universities, with all the presidents of the free world. Because why? Because he keeps security in our region. But that is at the cost of the freedom of our people in our country. And to hide away his crimes, to hide away this human rights abuse, he used sports washing as a way to cover it up and to lie to the people. And many people I've seen visit Rwanda on Arsenal and other major sports club in Europe. These are some of the wealthiest clubs in the world that one of the poorest countries in the world is sponsoring. People should ask why. Despite Kagame being open and welcomed by the free world, my father continued to use his platform to talk about the continued human rights abuse in our country. And it made him a critic of our country, the number one critic of Kagame, the enemy of the state. And in 2020, he was kidnapped and brought by force to Rwanda. And this is when I became I became a freedom fighter. My father was in prison and illegally detained because of his activism. And he was being persecuted as a terrorist. And my family and I had to go out to the world and educate the world about the realities of our country, educate the world about the autocracy building, about the lack of freedom in our country, because people didn't realize. All they saw was visit Rwanda. How can you tell me that Rwanda is not good if I see Rwanda on Arsenal? People didn't believe us at first. But thankfully, we persevered, and with the support of many, many people around the world, including the US government, HRF, and other organizations like Puni Foundation, we were able to secure the release of my father. But during that work, we were very oppressed as well. We found out my sister had Pegasus on her phone, this malware that only governments are allowed to have so they can track every single movement of our family during our advocacy. We were followed. We were attacked on social media. But also, we met many other freedom fighters around the world. I met people from Venezuela. I met people from China. I met people from Nicaragua. I met people from Zimbabwe. And I met people from Russia. And when we talked about our situation, we realized that these leaders, these autocratic leaders, were all using the same playbook. And my world was changed because I wanted to finally start fighting for others as well too, because now I know that this playbook can be crushed if all of us can get together and fight against autocracy. So this is a picture of our family after we welcomed our dad home. And something that I wanted to also say in our advocacy that I realized that really was a source of hope for me was the humanity I saw in people. People who saw the injustice that we were living, the injustice that Rwandan people were living, and they decided to stand up, using their platforms, using social media, using their network to help us free my father. And that was the biggest source of hope for me. And today, I'm here again because Rwanda is now invading the Congo, which is this country next to us, this big, big country next to us. And why are they invading the country? Because Kagame has been leading with impunity. No one has stopped him, as he's always welcome everywhere. And now, just like Putin in 2014, he's starting an invasion, and we're at risk of a full war in our region. And the reason why he wants to invade the DRC is because the DRC has some of the most precious minerals that we need in our lives, in our society, like your iPhones and any other technology tool that you use. Most of the metals come from the Congo. And so we need your help to protect the people of the Congo so they can remain sovereign. We need your help so you can talk about these issues, but also remind that security at the cost of human rights, security at the cost of freedom is not worth it, because security is freedom. And if freedom is not security, then we don't have any. And right now in the Congo, there is no security, so there's no freedom. And if there's no security in the Congo, there's no security around the world as well too. So please raise your voice, help us bring attention to the situation in the Congo, and fight against autocracy with us and become freedom fighters. Thank you.